Donald Trump's Retribution campaign against America's biggest law firms was dealt another blow yesterday when a federal judge struck down Donald Trump's executive order targeting the law firm WilmerHale for its association with former special counsel Robert Mueller. In a scathing opinion laced with more than 24 exclamation points of his own, Judge Richard Leon ruled that the executive order was blatantly unconstitutional and undermined the independent judiciary and independent lawyers that the founding fathers deemed necessary. He writes that Donald Trump's order is, quote, a staggering punishment for the firm's protected speech. The order is intended to, and does in fact, impede the firm's ability to effectively represent its clients. Adding this, quote, the order shouts through a bullhorn, if you take on causes disfavored by President Trump, you will be punished. This is now the third major law firm to take on Donald Trump in court over the executive orders and prevail, rather than capitulate, showing that standing up to Trump's Retribution campaign works quite well in court. As the New York Times puts it, quote, the ruling seemed to validate the strategy embraced by a minority of firms of fighting the Trump administration instead of caving to a pressure campaign and making deals with Mr. Trump to avoid persecution. Judges have already rejected similarly punitive executive orders aimed at the law firms Perkins Coie and Jenner and Block. Joining our conversation, voting rights attorney, founder of Democracy Docket, friend of the show, Marc Elias, who is a former partner at Perkins Coie. Marc, we can start here, but you want to start with the attacks on the judiciary and sort of the broader frame of news today. How much of this is exactly what you think Donald Trump intends? You know, the reckless language, calling judges, quote, monsters on Memorial Day, and the climate of fear that Judge Wallace so painfully and powerfully talks about.
Yeah, I think it's entirely on purpose. I think Donald Trump wants to intimidate all institutions that stand in his way. He wants to intimidate all individuals who stand in his way. And when he is unable to get obeyance in advance, like we've seen from too many law firms and some other large business and other institutions in society, then he takes to threats. And he starts with general threats against, courts as a whole, and then they become ever more dangerous as they become more specific, targeting individual judges, targeting individual lawyers, targeting individual whistleblowers, targeting individual people in the media. And he hopes that by unleashing the mobs of his supporters on both the institutions and on the individuals, he will cause those folks to back down and will also set an example that will prevent others from speaking up in the first instance.
Where do you think his retribution campaign against the law firms that he associated with folks like yourself or Robert Mueller or causes he didn't like, where does that stand in terms of the strength or the reputational damage done to the firms that capitulated?
I'm really glad you asked this question because it's easy to get lost in the fact that Donald Trump is now 0 for 3 and has lost all 3 of these cases against the 3 firms that have fought back. And none of the opinions have suggested it was even a particularly close question. As you point out, Judge Leon's opinion used 25 or 26 exclamation points. Honestly, I have not seen an opinion that used that many exclamation points in my entire career. So these have not been close questions. I think that what is a big news story that has been undercovered is just how badly this wound up backfiring for Paul Weiss in particular, which was the first law firm to capitulate and collaborate, but also for Skadden Arps and the others that then followed, because they made a calculation that they would be able to capitulate quietly. Donald Trump would then forget about them, and the public maybe would have, found the whole thing distasteful, but would move on. And ultimately, they would be viewed as savvy businessmen and women. And the opposite has taken hold. The fact is that people have not forgotten. People have not moved on, none the least of which are the judges who keep, excoriating Donald Trump, but also criticizing the law firms that settled. And rather than look like savvy businessmen and women, they now look like naive rubes, because the fact is their reputations have been stained. They no longer look like the pit bulls worth $2,000 an hour that they charge. And the fact is that that you have partners leaving these firms in some instances, and you have judges criticizing them. So I think really the business case for this turned out to be a pretty crappy one.
Mark, where do you go when you're a firm known for having, as Governor Wallace said there, top flight lawyers in it, and you did a bad deal to avoid an executive order that was described as unconstitutional and illegal with more than 40 exclamation points? How do you sell yourself as either a deal maker or a lawyer to potential clients or potential recruits?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that that is the business reality that I think some of these firms are going to face now. You know, the one thing I want to put a lie to is it's not that everybody capitulated. You know, the three big law firms that have won their cases didn't capitulate. Sussman, the fourth law firm, didn't capitulate. I was, you know, named in that in the Perkins Coie executive order, is why they were going after Perkins Coie. I was named, as you covered before, in a separate executive order. And I've been singled out by the President of the United States on a number of occasions. And my law firm, we put out a statement saying we will never back down. We would never obey. We would never capitulate. And you know what? Clients responded positively. We didn't lose clients. We gained clients. We didn't lose attorneys. Our recruiting is going through the roof. And so, you know, the fact is, it feels to me like oftentimes the conventional wisdom right now is that everybody wants people to be scared because they are scared. It may be that they understand you're scared, but they don't want you to back down. They don't want you to shrink away. And certainly when you're a lawyer or a law firm, as you say, it's really hard to sell that as good business.
The other thing is, I'm guessing that even in MAGA world, even if you are a Trump-supporting law student who wants to go work for one of the best firms, you're still attracted to strength. And the stronger party isn't the firm that went in there proactively and did a deal with Trump to avoid his wrath. It's the firm that litigated against him and prevailed. So where, either in the legal sphere or the business sphere or even the political arena, does this make any sense today?
Yeah, I think that that's also a really important point. And you know this, having covered politics and seen Republicans up close. They actually respect strength. You know, sometimes I think that Democrats don't realize that Republicans, they may not like strong Democrats, but they respect them more, and they are less likely to mess with them. And I think that that's what some of these law firms, including law firms that like Paul Weiss, that actually have a traditional liberal or progressive or Democratic bent to them. You know, you can go listen to what Steve Bannon has said about me, and he is both very critical of me, but he has also said that I am the best lawyer and the toughest lawyer because I fight so hard. And, you know, Kash Patel maybe said I'm an enemy of the Republican Party, but he also, you know, this is before he was at the FBI, you know, he also had clear respect for the fact that I fight hard. And it's not just me. That's true in the legal profession as a whole. It's true in every profession. And it's true in politics. You know, when you fight hard for your side, when you fight hard for what you believe in, the other side, particularly when the other side is Donald Trump, tends to back away.